Hi, this is Richard Campbell from .NET Rocks, and I'm here at the MGM Grand at Dev Connections, and I'm sitting with Lotka. We're going to talk a little Windows 8 consumer preview. Good to see you, sir.
Good to see you.
How are things?
Things are good.
Yeah, it's always fun to be in Vegas.
It is.
Yeah. So, you're known for building business objects, so CSLA space, you've been doing that forever.
For a very long time.
And in fact, I've come to count on you validating a certain number of technologies for me. That when you make it work with CSLA, I know it must be good.
So we hope.
Yeah, well, and you've proved right so far, Lockie. It's been a lot of years. I'm thinking about Metro in the business space. Just that style of UI, that approach to things. What are you looking at? Are you looking at it, can this do a line of business apps? Does it make sense?
I think so. And I think in September, when Microsoft really announced all of this,
right.
I think they kind of did a disservice because a number of people at that time from the Microsoft side were kind of poo-pooing the idea of business apps.
Yeah.
I think they had it in their head, this was all for Angry Birds and whatever other little toy apps.
Just a sort of tablet consumer play space.
And yet we now know that on the ARM-based hardware, really the only place that you can play is on the Metro Windows runtime side.
Right, sort of the desktop mode. We don't really know how that's going to come out. I haven't actually held one. Until I hold one, I'm not going to know for sure.
That's true.
But
all signs point to
it's just going to be Metro.
Just be Metro.
Yeah.
And so then when I think about this, and I think about all of the work that Magenic is doing on tablets, not obviously Windows tablets, but mostly iPad or other tablets, and all the work we're doing is business apps.
Of course, I mean that's your business.
And
the customers want tablets in the enterprise.
They do.
They're using them.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and not for everything, but for certain key segments where it makes sense that they want to have some sort of tablet experience.
And then Gartner put out a quote a while back saying they expect in the next 10 years, like 60% of the workforce will be using tablets in the workplace, kind of thing. I don't know how you break those kinds of predictions, but
I don't either.
Obviously, there's a bunch of smart people that think this is a significant trend, and that enterprises do want them. So I'm glad to hear you're actually seeing them, people using them, even though they don't necessarily fit with their existing programming model.
Well, exactly. And personally, I'm convinced that the big barrier to really having tablets in the enterprise is that everybody today has to buy a tablet and still keep their PC. And the Windows 8 tablets offer especially the Intel-based ones, offer the opportunity to have a tablet that is your PC. Just plug it into a docking station.
Right.
You got your keyboard, you got your mouse, you got maybe multiple monitors. Then you pull it out of the docking station, walk away, and you've got a tablet.
And use it the way you want to.
Isn't that just perfect, right?
Yeah, I think that's a very compelling model.
And so then, I follow that train of thought, and I think, okay, so the Windows runtime, WinRT, Metro, whatever you want to call it, platform is clearly what Microsoft hopes to be the dominant way to program Windows 8. And so then, if that's the case, then we're going to write business apps. Then we have to look at how do I write business apps that run in that world. And so I have. With CSLA, I've been spending a fair amount of time since the developer preview, and then again since the consumer preview, working on getting CSLA to run in that space.
So, I mean, the first thing I would got to think is you're staying in .NET, because .NET doesn't go away
that's right.
WinRT. It makes no sense. I feel like people got a little afraid that .NET didn't get a lot of love at Build, but it felt like it didn't need a lot of love. It's already the main way you do software development, and it's there.
Well, that's true, although I got to say developers are surprisingly sensitive.
It's amazing, right? It's like, they finally gave access to XAML for the C++ guys. Good for them. And they've created, with the Shocker engine and HTML5 and so forth, another way to build projects. It didn't take anything away from .NET, really.
No.
Although, what was the impact of running CSLA for you in the WinRT Metro mode? Because they're different, right? The framework's changed a little.
The framework has changed a little. And what I found, though, is that in terms of a start point, I tried starting from .NET. Because, CSLA's existing code base covers .NET, Silverlight, the phone, and even Android.
Right.
And so I tried starting with the .NET base as my start point.
Just load it up, see if it'll compile.
Yeah, that was clearly, well, number one, it was a lot of work. And number two, as I was looking through all of the touch points to fix it, they were all things I'd already done for Silverlight.
Oh, interesting.
And so I thought, all right, clearly reset, start over from the Silverlight code base.
Interesting. And I've heard a few people say this, that like the person closest to the skill set of a WinRT developer is a Silverlight developer.
And at this point, I'm 100% sure that's true.
Really? Yeah, of course. You've got a code base. You've
Yes.
actually done it. So how much change for a Silverlight app moving into WinRT?
Well, I think to answer that, you have to look at two different things. For CSLA, the biggest thing by far was that reflection is different.
Okay, that's big. Yeah.
And I use a fair amount of reflection to interrogate types and collect information. And so those changes were not hard, but they were pervasive. Now, if you don't use reflection,
It's not a big deal.
not a big deal.
Was the search and replaceable fixable? But
No,
no,
not at all.
It took time to go through each one and
Yep.
come up with a different way to do things.
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct. But beyond that, any other changes were very minor, very trivial in nature. But none of that's UI. That's all focused on the business layer, business logic, business objects, right? And as a result, people that are using CSLA to create business objects in WPF or Silverlight, their objects will move over to WinRT with no change,
Nice.
which is cool.
That's good for you and good for,
Good,
yeah,
good for
everybody
me,
else.
good for them.
Yeah.
But now if we talk about the UI piece of it, that's a whole different ballgame, because WinRT's XAML is not like Silverlight XAML, or I shouldn't say not like, it's, you know how Silverlight XAML and WPF XAML are similar but
Yeah.
not compatible?
Yes.
Now we have a third similar but not compatible.
Again. Well, and same issue with Phone 7 too, right? The Silverlight.
That's true, although the Silverlight on the phone and full Silverlight were all
Closer.
pretty close.
Yeah, but still not the same.
This is, for example, I took a Silverlight, a pretty simplistic Silverlight application, and just copied the XAML into a WinRT form, Metro form, and it worked, but it didn't look right.
Really? That's
Yeah.
interesting. So the code worked, the event stack worked.
So,
But the
the
UI rendering
actual
was different?
layout semantics of
No.
the XAML was not the same.
That surprises me.
And I was able to fix it. It was a bunch of minor little tweaks, but I was shocked because I expected things to just kind of line up the way that and then maybe they will. Maybe this is a beta.
Yeah, we are in
issue.
interim phase here, but I'm also thinking, there's also a lot of conversation coming from Microsoft around the way Metro UIs are supposed to look, and I wonder if that's what's impacting the XAML, is they're making
possible.
those changes to sort of force you into the path of making it look the Metro look.
I don't know. It's this was basically layout stuff. Instead of things being centered, they were squished off to one side, or just strange things that I would have never expected. At a code level, I had some value converters and some other view models and some things, and those needed changes, but it was mostly namespace. Things that
That's fair.
used to be system.windows.whatever
Right.
is now Windows.
Something else.
Something else.
Yeah, Carl's maintaining a wiki where he's sort of lining
Yeah.
up the differences between the Silverlight namespaces and the WinRT namespaces, and you see an awful lot. It's just a prefix change.
Right.
Yeah.
And that was my experience in that there were a bunch of changes in the code level in my UI code, but they were all trivial. They were either changing namespaces or some of the method signatures are different. The methods are the same,
Right.
but the signatures are slightly different
Right.
because parameter types are changed.
They change parameters and something like that. You got to go and look at each one of them.
So the end result is there's no way that you're going to take an existing app, WPF or Silverlight, and just go to WinRT for free.
Right.
But certainly if you start with Silverlight, you can get to WinRT with what I thought was a reasonable amount of effort.
That's cool. All right. And the idea that in Metro mode, we're actually going to type text, you're going to use a keyboard.
Yeah, I installed Windows 8 on my laptop, so I've been running it more or less full time the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Yeah.
And keyboard, mouse, works great.
How much time in desktop mode versus Metro mode?
Well, I probably would spend, I would say 20% Metro and the rest of it's desktop, because I'm using it for work.
And that's where the apps are.
That's where the apps are. But I always switch over because I like the news apps, the weather apps, the stock. Those are far superior as an experience. Even on a big screen with a keyboard and mouse, it's more fun to read the news in a Metro app.
Nice. Rocky, thanks so much for talking to me.
Thank you.